Let's see where we're up to in the introduction to Masechta Niddah, correct? So we got up to page Dalet, and we had a little bit of a discussion yesterday about like the physiological structure that bears on identifying the dam as dam niddah, and we differentiated between the three different locations. There was dam hayotzim in aliyah, there was dam hayotzim in a cheder, and then there was dam hanimtza beprosda. So in the case of dam hayotzim in a cheder, we established that dam was dam niddah and it's tameh. Dam hayotzim in aliyah, on the other hand, is tah. When it comes to nimtza beprosda, so we don't know whether it was yotzim in a cheder or yotzim in aliyah. If it was yotzim in a cheder, it's tameh. Yotzim in aliyah, it's tah. So those are the ground rules that reflect the Mishnah Masechta Niddah and the Gemara on Daf Yud Zayin on the Beis. And the Rishonim write that Bisman Hazeh Einon Bekiyim B'Mkomas Ha'elu Kol Dam Hanitza B'Prosdar Harei Hu B'Cheskes Dam Habo Min HaCheder U'Tmeya. So I guess when she does an internal checking, a bedika, then she goes into the prosdar. And she finds dam in the prosdar. Now, again, theoretically, that dam in the prosdar could have come from the aliyah, but we don't know the difference, and therefore we're going to declare her tameh. And now we said the following, that the dam comes from the makar, and it goes into the cheder. That dam is tameh. Now, the beis hachitz means that the actual moment of time, the point of time at which the dam becomes dam tameh, is not when it goes out of the makar. It's not enough that it came out of the makar, it's got to go into the beis hachitzon. Now the beis hachitzon is inside the body, so the dam hasn't yet come out of the body, and it's called ha'miduhu koslei rachim. So the walls of her uterus are still, so to speak, holding on to the dam. So the dam is not yet out of her body. It's still held up inside what's called the beis hachitzon. So the dam has come out of the makar, and it's now trapped, so to speak, in the beis hachitzon. And that's called hamidu koslei rachma. So again, the dam is still internal dam, correct? And lo yatsa dam l'chutz. So he quotes the Gemara here that beis hachitzon is bein hashinayim v'lachutz, bein hashinayim atzmo kilifnim, v'eino metamen. All right, so right now they're just like abstract rules. I guess you have to sort of memorize them, and then we'll see where they might chapen afkamin. Dam sheyotze derech dofen He says, "Ein dama mokar mitami seishal abayla elam yotze derech oso mokar." Yotze derech hadofen. So you could actually have dam in a mokar that comes out of a body in a different place instead of going down through, the Beis Hachitzon, etc., until it's Yotze L'chutz. It was taken out derech hadofen. Like, for example, I'm not sure if this is what he has in mind, but let's say if she has a cesarean birth, so the dam comes from her side, it never actually goes down. So such dam that came out derech hadofen is eno mitami isha. And this is derived from a pasuk: Ish asher yishkaves isha dava v'kilas ervasas mekora hera v'higil sas mekor domer. And the Chazal darshan in Masech Niddah Mem Aleph melamid she'ein isha tmeya ad sheyetze midava derech ervasa. So it says in the pasuk dava ervasa. And Vigilas Makara. So the Makara is Dava and Ervasa. So it's Achietzimi Dava, Derech Ervasa. So I guess Dava means the Makar, and Ervasa means the Makom Erva, and the Dava has to leave the Makar and go down through the Derech Ervasa. But if it goes through the Dofen, derech hadofen, then it's not mitami holabad. Dam hayotze bechaticha. Okay, now we're talking about a miscarriage. Rachmana litzlan, right? So mapelas chaticha. Imi efshol psichas kever below dam. Right, her uterus has to open in order for her to have this miscarriage. And we're assuming now, according to one Madiyomar, that once the uterus opens, then there's got to be dam. So there must be dam that's coming out of the mokar. Right? The uterus had to open up in order for it to expel the fetus, or again, we're not talking about a viable fetus. So therefore, there's definitely dam that's coming out of the rechem, and there's also dam nidus that's coming from the mokar, because the efshel of psichas kever below dam. Oshe efshel. Now the other man over says efshel of psichas kever below dam. So it's possible that even though she's expelling this chaticha, nevertheless, the uterus is now opening to allow the embryo to come out of her body, but nevertheless, it's possible that there's no dam. Lefichach im ein dam im chaticha tahora mishum chachash zeh. So she has a miscarriage and there's dam in the embryo. Is she tmei or is she not? Yesh l'tara. What would be the svara to say that she's tahora? She'ein derech dam lotzeis b'chaticha. In other words, there may be dam in the embryo, but it's not her uteral dam, her menstrual dam. V'ein ha'isha mitames imzav dama mimokar shalo tiderech. Meaning that if there's other dam, that's already an unusual dam. It's not the normal dam as part of her cycle. It's dam that comes from the miscarriage. And any dam that she finds might be dam that belongs to the chaticha meaning the embryo, the premature embryo, but it's not dam nidus. Now, dam coming out of the makar is only metame if it touches the walls of her uterus, which is called the basar. But here, what's going to happen is that the basar is going to serve as a separation between the makar and the walls of her uterus. And dam niddah metame only if it's yigav basar. If as it comes out of the makar, it has direct contact with the basar, the walls that line her uterus. Okay, so again, we're going to have other shitos that she will become tameh when she miscarriages, because any dam in the chaticha is really dam in a makar, and that's metame. Nefel uvladhu v'reitmea imotumus leda. Now we have another logically compelling reason to assume she's tmeya, but not because of dam nidus, but simply because of tumas leda. Dam hayotze b'shvoferes. Now we said that dam is only metame if it goes from the makar and touches the basar on the sides of her uterus. Echnisa shvoferes bi'oso makar. Now she inserts some sort of a what would be a good English word for shvoferes, like a round utensil, and she pushes the shoferes, or maybe she needs a doctor to do this, I don't know, and it goes all the way up to the makar. So any dam that comes out of the makar through this shoferes will not come in contact with a basar. It comes out of the body directly from the makar, meaning through the shoferes, without contact with the sides of her uterus. Is gamba zen nechleku im tahora? What's the svara to say that she is tahora in that case? L'fisha neber bibsara, and bibsara is lafuki v'lo b'shoferes. The shoferes serves as a chatzitza, separating the dam from her basar. And the Torah says, right? Let's see if we can get the pasuk that we had before. And anyway, the pasuk says bibsara. If we want, we should probably open up a chumash here. It's Vayikra Tesvav pasuk Yutes. Probably have it here on the previous daf. Let's just see. Yeah, here it is. Isha kisiya zava dam yib zova bibsara. So the Torah adds the word bibsara, which teaches me that the dam has to come out of the makar and have a contact with her basar. But here she inserted a shoferes, making it impossible for there to be any contact between her basar and the dam. So since through this shoferes, the dam coming out of her makar never comes in contact with her basar, therefore it's not metamim. He says there's a machlokas about this, whether she's tahora or not. I always thought that that's pashut that she's tahora. It says B'Gemara, Nechleku bazeh b'drasha zu. Im mishum kach yesh l'tayer gam chaticho b'soch dam. Right, if there's dam inside the embryo, then the embryo could serve as a chatzitza between the dam and habasa. Im tama drosha mishum shereiyas dam b'shvoferes hireiyah shalo kidech reiyah yesh ladun shereiyah b'chaticha hi kiderech reiyah. Now we have another principle called makar mikomo tame. What happens if she has a makar in the makar itself, which is the top part of the uterus where the dam comes out of, and now as a result of her internal injury, she's bleeding, but the bleeding is coming not from dam that emanates from the makar, but the dam in the flesh of the makar. Harei muteres l'bayla she'ein ze dam niddah. That's not considered dam niddah. That's dam makar. V'nechleku bazeh tanoim yesh hasover shemikol makom ha'isha tmea tumas niddah. She does have a tumah, but she's not asura l'bayla. L'fisha makar makomo tameh. So the makom itself is a makom tameh. The dam itself, though, is not dam nidus. Hamakar hareim tameh b'tumas nidus. V'adam hanintzeh sham tameh kidin dam niddah. V'yesh hasover makar makom tar v'ein dam tameh klal. Ein adam tameh klal v'eino mitam. So it seems that everybody agrees that she's not asura l'bayla. The question is whether she has acquired the contamination element of tumas niddah, but not the isur niddah. Remember we said when we started that there's like a brisket tzvei vidim here in the doraisa. There are two dimensions to nidus. There's tumas niddah and there's isur niddah. And in this case, when we're talking about makar in the makar, that is, in the worst case scenario, tumas niddah, but it doesn't generate isur niddah l'bayla. So that isur niddah l'bayla requires that the dam come in contact with the basar, but not dam derech shvoferes. So this, I just mentioned a little piece of history. When a woman has a problem, let's say a married woman, and she has a menstrual cycle that repeats itself very frequently in short intervals, and the poskim have to find some sort of kula in a way that she would have some part of the month she would be muteres l'bayla, otherwise we're going to have to require a divorce. So there are various heterim that we can cut down, let's say the 14 days, maybe to 12 days. Again, various calculations and so on and so on. But the single posek who thought he came up with a brilliant solution to this was Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. And he published a lengthy article based on shvoferes, that if in such a case of a woman who's in extreme, unusual, dire straits, that she can't find her head to l'bayla because of her repeating niddah period, to insert a shvoferes, I think you need a medical doctor to oversee this, and the dam would go straight from the makar into the shvoferes until it came out of her body. she would not be Tmei L'Bayla. And this generated a whole, the dust was flying in all the directions. And the poskim, because imagine what Rav Shlomo Zalman would suggesting would absolutely circumvent the laws of Niddah. There would never be Tumas Niddah if every woman would put this shoferes. Again, Rav Shlomo Zalman said he's only going to allow it in a very extreme case, but they were worried that opens a Pandora's box. People are going to say that Mikra Adin is mutter, and therefore they're going to use it l'chatchila even in regular situations where they just want to circumvent the laws of Niddah L'Bayla. But I was told by Rav Meir Schlesinger Shlita that he was with Rav Shlomo Zalman when they wheeled him into surgery. He had a very, very dangerous surgery in his later years. And he told Rav Schlesinger, a very fine Talmud of his, that it could be he's going up to the heavens now. And he knows that he's got a place in Gan Eden because he wrote that tshuva of Dam B'Shvofer. So he was very serious about that tshuva. I think it was published in a journal called Noam. And then in subsequent rejoinders, of other tshuvas that disagreed with him were also published in subsequent editions of Noam. Noam is a massive collection of journal of many journals of post Hazava. But Isha Sharosa Dambi May Ziva Rei Zava, Din Hazava Shasura Becholi Suri Nida, Farei Michlal Ovas Hatuma, B'Tames B'Maga, B'Masa, B'Mishka, B'Moshav, B'Merkov, V'chein, B'Tames Esakelim Shal Gabe. So this is identifying a Zava with a Niddah as far as the dinim are concerned. The surim of a Zava are identical with those of a Niddah. And as far as Tum is concerned, the Zava is Avos Hatumah. So if you put kalim on top of a zava, those kalim contract tumah mishum sharehi madaf lekalim elu. Okay, these are the laws of tumah vitara. Vitames is bola, just like a niddah is mitami bola, so too a zav is mitames is bola. So if a man has an intimate relation with a zava like that, like the same of a niddah, he becomes an avatuma. Now, what about a zava katana, which otherwise is known as shomeres yom keneged yom? She only saw 1 or 2 consecutive days, but not 3. He says, "Ein bein zava gedol of zava katana el spira shiva nekiyim chavas karman." But otherwise, a zava katana has the identical status as a zava gedola. She doesn't require shivas nekiyim, or a karman, but otherwise she has the identical status of a zava gedola. So as far as Hatuma is concerned, like we said, that a Zava Gedola is Metames, V'mago, V'masa, V'mishka, V'mosha, V'merkov, V'amtzakelim, Shal Gaber, etc. All those dinim apply to a Zava Ketana as well, just that she doesn't bring a carbon. Okay, and this he bases on the Rambam Yisur Bia Perik Vav. Now, there's a whole section here about a Zava Ketana, Shemeres Yom Kedeged Yom. I think we should leave that for another day. I'm going to make a note that Amir Hashem will pick this up. So we're on the second column on page Talid, up to Zava Ketana.